nothing but the truth.
Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. This is my weekly X-ray of key issues to bring you perspectives and clarity as to why these matter to you without holding back on the truth. Today we take a deep dive into one of India's most high-stakes political battles. We are looking at the rising challenge of Tejaswi Yadav in Bihar. Now, after Tejaswi, the 35-year-old leader of the Rashtriya Janata Dal or RJD was named the chief ministerial candidate of the Mahagathbandhan or MGB, the battle to win Bihar has become an extremely close and tough fight. Tejaswi is taking on Nitish Kumar, the veteran chief minister of Bihar, who is more than twice his age. Nitish Kumar is the Janata Dal United Leader or JDU, who has ruled Bihar for 20 years now and leads the National Democratic Alliance, where Bharatiya Janata Party or the BJP remains the dominant force. So in this episode, the four big questions we will answer are: question 1, will Tejaswi Yadav's Rainbow Caste Coalition deliver victory for him and the MGP? Number 2, can his Jobs for All election promise win over Bihar's youth? Number 3, will Tejaswi be able to shake off the Jungle Raj image of his father, Lalu Prasad Yadav? And question 4, what kind of leadership qualities Tejaswi Yadav has, and will he be able to make the cut as chief minister? Now let's take the first question, and which is that Tejaswi's Rainbow Coalition of Caste that he has assembled, and will it deliver him victory in 2025? Remember, in 2020, Tejaswi came very close to becoming chief minister, with the difference between the NDA and MGB in their total votes. The vote share was just 0.03% difference. The NDA secured 37.26% and the MGB 37.23%. So you can see 0.03%. The difference, in fact, was just 12,000 votes. That's how close the voting pattern was. Of course, in terms of seats, any party needs to win 122 seats for a simple majority in Bihar's 243-strong assembly. The NDA got 117 seats in 2020 and had to cobble together a majority with two other parties to cross 122 seats. In fact, they finally ended up with 125 after co-opting a couple of more parties. The MGB, which of course the RJD is the major component, got a creditable 110 seats, with Tejaswi's RJD emerging as the single largest party. In fact, the RJD won 75 seats with a vote share of 23%, which was higher than that of the BJP. The BJP got 74 seats with a vote share of 19.5%, and its coalition partner, the JDU, headed by Nitish Kumar, secured 43 seats, and he got a vote share of 15.4%. So you can see where Tejaswi stands in terms of vote shares. We've seen that the BJP gets only 19.5%, whereas Tejaswi gets 23%, and Nitish Kumar around 15.4%. So learning from the lessons of the 2020 Assembly battle, Tejaswi has sought to add what one could call more color to the Rainbow Coalition of castes that he and the MGB or the Mahagathbandhan have put together. He has taken a more inclusive approach this time that covers all the key caste groups. And if you recall, for long, the RJD's main strength and, of course, its weakness was the dominance of his Yadav community in the OBC group. Now, just to give you some figures so you get the kind of percentages, I don't want to load you too much, but I think this is interesting. The OBCs constitute 27.2% of Bihar's 130 million strong population. 27.2% is what the OBC population is. And out of this, the Yadavs are the largest segment, whom Tejaswi belongs to, is the largest segment with 14.3%. along with the Muslims that in Bihar constitute 17.7%, the so-called Muslim Yadav combination, or MY combination, as pollsters have called it, gives Tejaswi and the MGB a head start of 32%. So you've got that arithmetic that you're looking at, 14 plus 17%, close to 31 to 32%, and that is what Tejaswi and the MGB start with, because that is his vote bank that is very solidly behind that. But there is one problem. If there is a very strong consolidation of the MY group or the Muslim Yadav group, it generally leads to counter-polarization of the other castes, which the JDU and the BJP have always cashed, which means that as the Muslims and the Yadav consolidate, the other caste concerned about this consolidation begin to go to the other party, which is the NDA. And particularly Nitish Kumar with his hold over what is known as the extreme backward classes, or the EBC, who constitute, mind you, as much as 36% of the population, and is an umbrella term for over 110 caste groups, 112 to be precise. And with 8.3% of this OBC segment being Muslims, it is the 27% Hindu EBC segment that has been the prime target of the JDU and the Nitish Kumar, as well as the BJP. Nitish Kumar owes a lot of his support to this particular group. The BJP, the JDU's alliance partner, is strong among the upper castes, which constitute 15.4%, with the Brahmins, the Bhumihars, and the Rajputs dominating this group. So the BJP stronghold is the upper caste, the JDU is the EBCs, and of course, Tejaswi has the OBC votes. Since Yadavs have such a large majority, they tend to vote for him. Of course, there are smaller groups that might vote for the other combinations. Now, we must mention one more factor in this, which is that the NDA's other key partner is the Lok Jan Shakti Party, headed by Chirag Paswan, who is wooing the scheduled caste or Dalit community, which again constitutes a substantial 19.7% of Bihar's population. Now, the Paswans themselves account for 5.3% of the population, and Chirag Paswan gets much of those votes. But so far, Chirag has been seen only as a leader of his community, and in this election, he's hoping to broad base his support not only across Dalits, but project himself as an alternative to Tejaswi Yadav, the young face that the NDA would like to project in future. So that's the lay of the land. If you can see, I've talked of the Dalits, which of course the Paswan, particularly Chirag Paswan, is trying to secure 19.7% of the votes. You have EBCs, 36%, but as I said, the Hindus are around 26% of that. Then, of course, you've got the OBCs, 27%, and the forward communities, anything between 12 to 15%. So that's the lay of the caste land. And if you take a look at Tejaswi's strategy this time, to thwart the NDA, the MGB have expanded its horizon by allying with many, many minor caste groups. That's the most distinctive thing this time. Just to give you one example, and this is a really prominent one, is that they've aligned this time with the Vikashil Insaf Party, or the VIP, which is headed by Mukesh Sahani, who represents the Malla community, which has 2.6% of the votes. And in fact, as one of the biggest moves it's done is to offer or make Mukesh Sahani the Deputy Chief Minister possibility in the combination if the MGB wins. So that is one big community that they have targeted. Last time the VIP supported the NDA formation. This time he is with the MGB. The Congress party is headed by Rajesh Ram, who belongs to the Ravidas community, which is another scheduled caste group or Dalit group. It equals the Paswans in terms of representation, accounting for 5.3% of the Dalits' total population of 19.7%. So you have the Ravidas community, which is almost in terms of numbers equal to that of the Paswans, and the Congress is using its president, the state president, to woo this particular community. And let's not forget the whole social justice theme that Rahul Gandhi had in many senses propagated during the Lok Sabha elections. That continues to have force here with Rahul Gandhi also talking of the vote chori and the entire special intensive revision that the Election Commission had conducted in Bihar and had gained traction over there. So the Congress is not being seen as it was in 2020. It was the weak link of the MGB. This time the Congress seems to have a lot more punch, but of course the electoral results will be the true test of whether they've been able to gain ground or will they prove to be the weakest link of the MGB. Now, apart from seats, Tejaswi has been using SOPs to woo the EBC, which is, if you recall, Nitish's territory. And among the SOPs for them is, which he announced immediately after he was declared the chief ministerial candidate of MGB, maybe 2-3 days after that, he said, he declared a one-time interest-free financial assistance of rupees 5 lakh for the traditional working class communities such as barbers, potters, carpenters, and blacksmiths. And this, he said, was to help them achieve economic upliftment and self-employment. Now, this is being done to bring in an additional 5% votes into this camp. And remember, the numbers matter. According to the Bihar's caste survey, barbers account for 1.6% of the roughly 130 million population in Bihar, carpenters 1.5%, potters 1.4%, and blacksmiths 0.6%. These are small groups, but in a state where wafer-thin margins, which I talked about, just 0.03% was the difference between the two. These often decide political destiny. And if you see what Tejaswi is doing, he's also even promising to review prohibition, which Nitish Kumar had imposed. And this is largely because close to the 1.27 million people who were jailed in liquor cases, they are mainly from the Dalits, EBC, and to some extent the OBC category. And so this becomes a potent electoral lever. So the game for Tejaswi is, can he add the numbers beyond the MY combination, which is the Muslim-Yadav combination of 32%. And if you recall, it was 37.6% in 2020 that, and just a 0.3% difference decided who would be the winner. So any party that starts touching anywhere close to 38% has a good chance of coming back to power. And that is Tejaswi's game as he brings this caste coalition together, minor parties, all put together apart from the large chunks that he has, and he hopes that the Congress would also support, and his various other allies that I talked about would also come together and help him push his numbers beyond what he had in 2020. Now, having examined the caste calculus, let's look at the second big question, which is whether his jobs for all election promise can win over Bihar's youth. Tejaswi's jobs for all election promise. Having knitted together what he thinks is possibly one of the best caste calculuses that he's had, which I mentioned earlier, Tejaswi is working on two other main groups, the women and youth, which in Hindi, of course, is Mahila and Yuva. And this is seen as the new MY combination that Tejaswi is trying to carve out to win in 2025. Now, he knows that he is racing against time and geography to reach as many young voters as possible, as the two phases of the elections are held almost back-to-back and will end by November 11th. So he's holding an average of 7 rallies a day, crisscrossing constituencies rapidly. My India Today colleague, Amitabh Srivastav, who has covered his rallies, says there is both a new sense of energy and urgency in Tejaswi's body language as he senses that this could be his best chance yet. Now, there's a lot of symbolism in what he does. He wears a very simple beige or white shirt with a lantern symbol embossed on his sleeves or on his chest, which enables him to connect with everyday voters and tell them he is one of theirs. And more importantly, the audience he addresses, you have to see a Tejaswi rally to believe it, is a dense, kinetic gathering of young voters, and they could make or break these elections. And he knows that very well. So his speeches, often extempore, weaves the themes of the rampant unemployment, migration, and the dignity of labor into a single emotional narrative. The RJD's campaign anthem is Bihar badalne wala hai, Sarkar badalne wali hai, or if you look at it, Bihar is going to change, the government is going to change. In doing so, Tejaswi has moved from his father's grammar of social justice to one of economic aspiration. From social justice, which his father Lalu Prasad Yadav was the biggest advocate, he combines that quality into one of economic aspiration. And this you can see is a rapid shift in identity. Politics of promise or identity politics to a promise of delivery. From legacy to what might, in many senses, be, as I had mentioned earlier, the promise of identity to one of aspiration. Tejaswi's biggest promises is, or biggest promise is one government job for every family in Bihar. One government job for every family. That's huge. Last time he had promised 1 million jobs. This time he's going even further. And that has invited massive criticism from the rival NDA, who call this a fiscal fantasy. Now, NDA leaders point out that assuming one member from 25 million families that are there in Bihar gets a job, a government job, they claim that the salary bill alone would be at least rupees 11.7 lakh crore, nearly 4 times Bihar's current budget, and therefore they call it a fiscal fantasy. Tejaswi, on the other hand, when he spoke to India Today's Maria Shakil, who's interviewed him extensively, says he's worked out a blueprint with experts and will present that soon. Whether it's fiscal fantasy or not, the pledge has made jobs the core emotional issue of this election. Remember that. Jobs has become the core election of this issue, and this plays into Tejaswi's hand, though it might push his credibility, but he keeps the job issue on the forefront. And this you can imagine why it's so important, because we know that close to 7% of Bihar's male population have migrated away from Bihar and are working in various cities, women too, and that is a substantial chunk which indicates or just the lack of jobs in Bihar and why this is such a big issue and why Tejaswi promising that has a lot of purchase and could, in some senses, if people believe it's credible, push the momentum for him. Now, apart from that, Tejaswi is wooing women, which is, of course, a very, very crucial vote bank in Bihar. And so far, women have backed Nitish Kumar the most in recent elections because of the good work he's done and the focus, particularly not only just in terms of prohibition, but a lot of schemes for them. And of course, the NDA has announced a bonanza this time where they've put in rupees 10,000 cash into the banks of all the women in a particular scheme. So that seems to have given the NDA momentum. And now the RJD or the Tejaswi is trying to shake that hold. And among the things he's doing is fielding 23 women candidates, the highest among all parties. And he calls it the Tejaswi Pran Patra. And these promises include rupees 2,500 monthly payouts for all women and rupees 30,000 salary to the 14 million Jivika Didis or community mobilizers. So he's countering the NDA's push with these massive promises as well as, of course, giving seats, a larger number of seats to women. So that's Tejaswi's MY campaign that he's doing, the Mahila and youth, as different from the Muslims and Yadav as earlier. And it's certainly, you can sense that there's a markedly different from 2020. What he lost by a whisker then in numbers, he won in perception. Bihar's youth saw him as a credible alternative. 5 years later, Tejaswi is trying to convert that perception into reality. His campaign slogan is Naya Soch, Naya Bihar. And this seeks to reframe the RJD as a party of aspiration rather than of grievance or legacy. Which comes to the third big question. Will Tejaswi be able to shake off the jungle Raj image of his father, Lalu Prasad Yadav? And this is where the NDA is striking, where it hurts most, with leaders like Narendra Modi and Amit Shah relentlessly invoking the bogey of a return to the jungle Raj, which is a shorthand for lawlessness during Tejaswi's father's era before 2005. Tejaswi counters this by distancing himself from the baggage of the past, even without naming it directly. He told India Today's Maria Shakil that I've never harmed anyone, no one has any grievances against me. And he said in another presser that was there, he said, I would even go after my shadow if there's even a shadow of doubt against me on this. And therefore, his whole strategy is to deliberately distance himself from the troubled legacy while making his own imprint. Now, having secured the position as the Alliance's chief ministerial candidate, he has been hammering the point as a counter that the NDA hasn't officially declared Chacha Nitish, as he calls him, as its CM candidate. And therefore, he says that it is now certain, according to him, that Nitish Kumar will not be the chief minister again. He is using the ambiguity of Nitish's return as fuel for his campaign. With Nitish Kumar, as I mentioned, being 20 years already in power, he is acutely aware that anti-incumbency against Nitish is a major drawback for the NDA, and also the perception that the chief minister is not keeping good health. How true is that? That only they would know. But Tejaswi is casting himself as the face of generational change, a man trying to unshackle from his father's shadow and Bihar's political fatigue. In fact, the change narrative is probably the one that would give him the biggest momentum, the change narrative. When I covered Odisha last year, neighboring Odisha, despite Naveen Patnaik's popularity with people being extremely grateful for the kind of 24 years service or progress that he delivered, they voted him out. The BJP didn't have a leader, but it won a majority. Now it is to be seen whether that sentiment could see Nitish's face. Tejaswi wants to ride the sentiment of change, and that, if you see all the interviews that the India Today team does on the field, is evident among the electorate. And his rallies, one of the things he keeps saying there is, Tejaswi is asking you for one chance. You gave the NDA 20 years, give me 20 months. Together we will build a new Bihar. This is his slogan. Whether the voters and those who will, his backers, give him the kind of majority is to be seen. But let's look at the fourth big question. What are Tejaswi's leadership qualities, and can he make the cut as chief minister? It's a harsh question. Leaders grow into positions. But just let's look at his background so that we get some idea of, we know that he was the son of Bihar's first couple of politics, Lalu Prasad Yadav and Rabri Devi. Tejaswi, in fact, grew up where power, politics, and myth were intertwined. He's a Class 9 pass, which, in fact, the NDA seems to take a lot of digs at. He has flirted with professional cricket. Again, a lot of digs being taken about that, but at least he's quite a sportsman. He kept the benches of the IPL team, the Delhi Daredevils, warm before trading it for political rallies. His first brush with campaign politics came in 2010 when he accompanied his father to a rally during the Bihar poll. He was very, very young at that time. It was a true baptism by fire in that election because it proved disastrous for the RJD as they lost badly to Nitish Kumar and the NDA. He returned to Delhi and pursued cricket for a while, but then the family crisis in 2013 when Lalu Prasad Yadav was convicted in the fodder scam brought him right back to Patna. His mother, Rabdi, summoned him home, and the transformation from sportsperson to politician began for Tejaswi Yadav. Within 2 years, that change was evident. In 2015, he successfully contested the Raghopur seat, followed by a swift elevation to Deputy Chief Minister in Nitish Kumar's government. At that time, Nitish Kumar joined forces with the RJD. The JDU and the RJD came together to defeat the NDA. And it all came undone, of course, in 2017 with the JDU returning to the NDA. Then again, in August 2022, Tejashwi became Deputy Chief Minister when Nitish switched to the RJD Congress alliance, only for the alliance to crumble in January 2024, just before the general elections. So for Tejashwi, the revolving door of Nitish's alliances has been both a curse and a lesson in statecraft. As he said recently, politics in Bihar can't just be about arithmetic, it also has to be about trust. Though his Deputy Chief Minister stint lasted only 2 years, Tejaswi managed to make a mark. He focused on filling up long vacant posts in health and education sectors, pushed recruitment drives because he had promised 1 million jobs, and he signaled his intent to be an administrator. He, in fact, cultivated an image of quiet diligence and an approachability, a contrast to the older generation. And Maria Shakil says on the campaign trail, and while she was interviewing him, he comes across as far more mature than he was when, say, in 2020. He's very organized and very coherent in what he says, very clear. And some of this is proof of his administrative maturity. As he tells the crowds in his election campaign, I've seen governance from within. I know what works and what doesn't. So Tejaswi doesn't come like a greenhorn. He's already had 2 stints as Deputy Chief Minister, and this in some senses enhances his chances as it comes as the state heads to the polls. For the Congress and the left allies in the coalition, Tejaswi, no doubt, is the undisputed face. As Congress peace broker Ashok Gehlot succinctly put it, Tejaswi is our collective choice because he represents continuity and change, both of which Bihar needs. For the MGB, it is unmistakably Tejaswi versus the NDA. Whether he would prove his mettle in his second big chance is to be seen. There is no doubt that the Bihar electorate wants change. Whether that change is for Tejaswi Yadav, it is a fight that he will have to win. And as I said, it's early days. There's still a couple of weeks to go. Anything could change, but Tejaswi seems to have got the momentum and is putting up a huge fight against the NDA. Let's watch and let's wait. But for more details, do read my in-depth cover story on the subject by my colleague Amitabh Srivastav in the latest issue of India Today. Thank you for being with me in this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.